Welcome to episode 18 of Can We Talk About Your WordPress Projects? The topic of today's live training on Can We Talk About Your WordPress Projects is essential processes your agency needs. There are a myriad of essential processes, and the output from those is procedures, which is the step-by-step. But you've got to have these processes in place to be running a smooth agency in order for your projects to consistently get done on time, within budget, with the right features that meet the client's business requirements. I'm going to go over what those are, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to click this button here, and there we go. Share. So really hoping that you all are looking at a slide that says the 6 productivity principles for WordPress project success. And I know I go on and on about these 6 principles, but y'all, they changed my life. They changed everything about the way I do anything, any kind of project related anything. I've said this a million times, whether it's tiling your kitchen floor, managing a WordPress project, or managing a project to go on an international vacation and all the planning that takes place. These same principles apply to everything. These are principles, and they boil themselves down into processes you need to have in place. Then those processes are boiled down into step-by-step procedures. It's so simple. It is kind of simple once you know what should be in these processes, but it's time-consuming. So let me go over what those essential processes are. And those of you who have been through PM 101 will recognize this list. When I say those of you who've been through PM 101, for those of you who may not know, that is the entry-level course inside the WP Project Managers Academy. Some of these slides come from there. And so that's what I was referring to. All right, let's see if we can get that page forward to go. Man, I didn't know I had done this slide to animate. Let's just get the list up here. Okay, so there's 10 of them, right? I'm going to give you a really brief little description, then I'm going to break it down just a little bit. Then I will talk about what the top 4 of these essential processes really are. Okay, the 2-step proposal process is so you don't give too precise an estimate too early in the process before you do the discovery. Requirements definition, that of course is what does this website need to do? What business problem does it need to solve? That's business requirements, which feed into functional requirements. Then what do we need on the website to meet that business requirement? Issues and risk management. Issues, things that happen on a project. Risk, things that could happen that you could prevent if you plan for it. A content first development approach. Those of you who've been watching for a while know, no development till you get all the content. If you do it, everybody tries it at least once, and it's always a train wreck. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Your WordPress technical approach. You need a starter site you can just spin up and then make the changes to it that already has your plugin stack of your preferred and tested plugins that work well together. You need all of that. That's your technical approach. At the very base level, there's a whole lot more to it. Your communication plan. What is appropriate communication with the client? What are the channels you're going to use? What are the boundaries you're going to set for the client? Never, ever send a text to my personal number, even though I gave it to you. Those sorts of things. A defendable estimating process. How are you doing your estimates? Is it something you can do the same way every time so that you can improve? That's why you need a defendable estimating process. Not that the client would ever ask you, but just in case they do, how do you come up with your estimate? You need to be able to describe them something other than, I just kind of grabbed something out of the air because I thought that's how much it was worth to you. That's not a good answer to that question. Change control. Okay, this is probably one of my favorite ones. That's just to keep scope creep from happening. And for those of you who don't know what scope creep is, when the client asks for one little thing and you do it, and they ask for another little thing and you do it, and all of a sudden this project has ended up with a whole lot of more requirements than you ever thought about at the beginning, and you gave away a whole bunch of it for free. I get very passionate about the change control thing. And then acceptance management, that just means what is done? What does done mean? How does that look? What are the checkoff things that this has to have in order for us to be considered complete and approvable? That's your brief overview of these 10 essential project management processes. And there are actually more. These are just the essential ones. Okay, so if we break these each down a little bit more, the 2-step proposal process, the whole point for that is to ensure you get paid for discovery and that you don't do a final estimate until after you've done the deep dive discovery. Because There's going to be things you forgot, they forgot, you forgot to ask, they forgot to ask, assumptions that were made that will clear themselves up as you start to dig down into more clearly what it is exactly what business problems we're trying to solve here. Requirements definition. When you can repeat a process for gathering the requirements from the client, if you can use a repeatable process that you improve over time, you're just going to end up with better requirements because you're going to understand why asking that question that way didn't work, but asking the same question a different way worked. Those are the kinds of things you need to be concerned about when it comes to requirements definition and having a process in place. Issues management. You need to have a plan for how you're going to deal with issues when they come up. It's a little bit hard to articulate the difference between issues and risks, but issues are things that you couldn't possibly have foreseen that just pop up in the middle of a project, like a pandemic. That would be a good example of an issue and not something you could maybe attribute to risk. Although maybe you could now that this has happened, now that probably becomes a risk that you want to incorporate into your risk management plan, which is on the next slide. So we'll talk about it in just one second. So you need to have a plan for dealing with issues before the project starts, because that means smoother sailing on your project because everybody knows what to accept when an issue arises. Who does it go to first? How does this get escalated? Who talks to the client? That sort of thing when it comes to issues. Or who doesn't talk to the client. Sometimes that's the best way. Oh, I've been talking the whole time because this one animated too, because I wasn't watching the presenter thing over here. Okay, I'm sorry. Two-step proposal process, requirements definition, and issues management. And I talked about all three of those. Sorry. I'll be better on the next slide because now I know they're animated. I copied them from another slide deck and I didn't realize they were animated. Okay. Oops, now I need to back up. All right, risk management. That is identifying risks before the project because that sets the proper expectation for the client. If something catastrophic happens, like our lead developer gets hit by a bus, I don't wish that on anyone, but it's always a good example. How would we handle that? You can already know you're either going to find a new developer, you've got somebody in your hip pocket already ready. Anything that gives the client more faith, you're going to follow through regardless what happens. So if you have a risk management process and you put that in your project documents to your client, it just makes you look way more professional. If this happens, we've already got a plan for it. If this happens, we've already got a plan for it. They'll respect what you do a whole lot more if you do this sort of thing. So it helps set those expectations with the client. Content first development approach. This is another thing I go on and on about. And what this does is eliminate content collection bottleneck. And it happens on every project, even sometimes when you have a process in place. But if you don't have a process in place with everything spelled out to the client about how this is going to work and what the expectations are from you, Mr. Client, they make assumptions, y'all. You have to straighten it out for them. If you get the content done on time, here's what's going to happen. Maybe it's a perk. If you don't get the content done on time, and these dates are agreed to between us, then here's what's going to happen, and here's what's going to happen next, and here's what's going to happen next. That's super important to have in place. And as I said before, your WordPress technical approach, which really at a bare minimum is your starter site. You've got a theme you love working with. You've got a page builder you love working with. All those standard plugins that you use for security, for SEO or whatever, those are all preloaded on this, oh, I misspelled plugin, a trusted plugin stack. Whatever is your standard operating procedure in terms of a website. If you could have the perfect website, then you need to create a starter site with all those things. There's some other technical things you need to iron out in your technical approach as well. Okay, then we come to, I knew that was going to happen. I thought there was only two on this slide, is a communication plan. Setting boundaries and protocols is just going to make your life way easier from the get-go. The client's already been informed about what are the proper channels to communicate with you, what's the best way to get a response from me. If you communicate through this other channel, which is only for emergencies and it's not an emergency, then I'm less likely to jump on your deal. However you want to word it. I've got examples for that in the Academy. A defendable estimating process. Okay, estimating process and improving it over time, just like a process for gathering the requirements, it means you're going to be giving better estimates later on. For those of you who've taken some of my training, you know, we never pad a quote. We try to give a precise estimate. You know, there's all this focus these days on value-based estimating, which has its merits, but you still have to have an hourly rate assigned to your time for every project. So when you waste time or you allow your client to waste your time, you know how much money you just lost by doing that. That is super, super important for keeping you on task. Also, you need that hourly rate to at least establish a baseline estimate. Now, whether you want to pop that up because of value, that's up to you, but you need to know where your ROI line is. And that's why you need a defendable estimating process. And the reason I say defendable is that in the training inside the academy, we talk about the 8 questions you should be prepared to answer, even if the client doesn't ask, because you are going to answer them throughout your proposal presentation. Then you give them that list of 8 questions and say, now go ask the other guy these questions. And one of those things you're going to explain to them is how you don't pad a quote, that your estimate is based on knowledge and history and blah, blah, blah. You never tell them what your hourly rate is, but that's what this estimate is based on. And we don't pad the quote and blah, blah, blah. Those questions kind of focus on the other guy who doesn't know all these skills I just taught you. So it's a sales tactic. That's all. This is how project management can actually be used as a sales tool. Okay, change control, a clear process, that is invoked without exception, is the only path to stopping scope creep. A good change control process always includes a change budget and a method for using it. This is one of those essential processes you need. And then acceptance management. And we advocate establishing acceptance criteria before the project ever begins. That's not just acceptance criteria for the final website, but acceptance criteria for all of those interim deliverables. For example, let's say that one of the acceptance criteria for the website is that all the fonts match what they currently have in print. So that is a checkoff item, right? If everything matches, they can't say, well, you don't really like that font on the screen. Sorry, that's what the requirement was. So that's the whole concept behind a good acceptance management plan. And the reason we call it acceptance instead of approval is because we don't care if you approve of it, because you have to accept it because it's meeting this criteria that you agreed to 3 months ago. Okay, those are those 10 essential processes. What I want you to do right now, oh gosh, I talked on that whole slide with nothing on the screen. This is why I need to be able to see the Facebook group at the same. I need 3 monitors. Or maybe I should not do these slides in presentation mode. I should have turned that off completely. Okay, I should have just shown you the slides right within PowerPoint. You wouldn't have cared, and it would have made this a lot easier. On to the next slide. I got to make it go all the way to number 10. All right, what I want you to do is think about, of all of these 10, which would you say are the most important top 4 that if you were getting started on something like this would be the ones you would need to focus on first? Type that in the chat. Type the number of the one. I'm not going to say numbers because then you'll think those are the right answers. There isn't really a right answer. This is what I advocate are the top 4. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. I hope everybody that is watching has written down what you think your top 4 are. If I had to pick the top 4, it would be the 2-step proposal process, because that really does, you start solving scope creep before scope even is finalized, because you're finding new things. If you do not give a precise estimate, even when you give a final estimate or an estimate at the end of the 2-step proposal process, it might not be a final estimate, but it is way more precise because now you've got all the detail. Super important. Content first. This is not the number one pre-point. When, you know, I do a lot of these surveys, like when people sign up for freebies on my website, I make them answer questions like, what's the number one thing you're struggling with? It almost always, well, so far beyond all the rest of them. The first one is content first, getting content from the client on time. The second one is scope creep. So those are the 2 things I focus most on, because those are the 2 things most people are struggling with. And to control scope creep, you got to have a good change control process, and you got to invoke it every single time. I don't care how small that change is. I don't care if it's a change to the schedule or a change to the cost or just a change to the requirements that doesn't change either the time or cost. And sometimes that happens, especially when a requirement is eliminated. But all of that stuff needs to be analyzed as to its impact on the schedule. Is it going to push things out? Is it going to keep things the same? Is it going to mean we can get done faster? All of those things have to be done all along the way. And then acceptance management, which just makes everyone's life easier by deciding upfront what done means. If you want to know how to get these processes in place, you know what this is going to be about. I invite you, if you haven't already, to join the Project Managers Academy at wproadmaps.com. We got 2 tracks of study. You can start with the basic free membership. You will get access immediately to WordPress Project Management 101, which is the basics. I give you an acceptance management plan process. I give you a change management process for free, along with a lot of other processes, and then some, and I tell you how to create all of these things. Then in the premium membership, if that's the route you'd like to go, you get access to Project Management 101, which is kind of a prerequisite to the other piece, which is the complete project management roadmap for WordPress, which includes a lot more done for you processes and procedures and a lot more demos that show you how to do certain things. We've got lessons from 13 different instructors on different parts of the whole process that surround project management, like lead generation, recurring revenue, and scaling your agency, all of those sorts of things. Oh, client management, all those things. So we have problem-solving roadmaps in there, and we have project execution roadmaps in there. Then we have ongoing content. But the thing I'm most excited about right now, I'm so excited. I think we've got 5 certified level 1 certified WP project managers now. And I'm very excited about that. They went through the whole course. Oh, wait, let me get to the next slide. They went through the whole PM 101 course, and they, as beta testers, got certified, took the final exam. There's a quiz at the end of each module, and then there's a final exam. They have now been awarded this badge that once Badge OS gets some kinks worked out, it has a verification page. You can put this badge on your website. You can put it in your email signature. You can put it all over the place. People can click on it and find out what you did to earn that certification. I'm not certifying. You can implement what I taught you. What I'm certifying is you completed this course of study that should prepare you to do these things for your client. And the other thing I'm really excited about is, for the very first time ever, the WP Project Managers Academy, or WP Roadmaps, is sponsoring a summit. This is the Page Builder Summit. Y'all know I love Elementor. The other page builders are just as good. It depends. It's like chocolate and vanilla. For those of you who might not know what that saying is, they say if everyone loved vanilla, we probably would never have chocolate. I'm really excited to be a speaker and a sponsor at the Page Builder Summit. You can find out everything you need to know. If you just use my sponsor link, that would be really helpful, because then they know that I actually sent traffic to them. But it is summit.camp/ref/15. And y'all, look at my picture on this slide. I'm right next to Troy Dean. That makes me feel like one of the cool kids. I am nowhere near the speaker that Troy Dean is. But I mean, look at this lineup. Nathan, he's another one of my favorites, is speaking. Next to him is Anchin LaRue. She's actually a student in the academy. She's putting on this summit along with Nathan Wrigley. He's number 4 across the top there in the orange shirt. And he runs WP Builds, which is a podcast and a Facebook group and a lot of stuff. Let's see who else is on there that I recognize. Devender, he's also in our group. He's the first one on the second row. And Peacha, she's at the bottom in the middle. She is a UX design expert, so I'm really looking forward to her talk. And there's a whole bunch more than this. This is just this one particular slide. So go over to summit.camp. Check it out. It's really super. This brings us to the end of episode 18 of Can We Talk About Your WordPress Projects? I hope you have gotten some insight into the essential processes you need to have in place inside your agency. If you need help, I would love to help you. Just join the academy. It's all over there. And most of it's free. So get on over there and study. All right. Oh, good. I did this within a half hour. That was my goal. I know I was talking really fast. I get kind of long-winded and I don't want to keep y'all all that long. So let me go back over to the Facebook group before I sign off. if I can figure out how to get back over there. Jody from New Mexico. Hey, Jody. Julian says he joined the academy, but he hasn't done the course yet. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. You can still be a beta tester for the certification program. There's a certain number of coupon codes, and once those are gone, they're gone. Once you go through the process, you get to the end, it's supposed to redirect you to a page where you get the opportunity to say, I want to be a beta tester. It's normally $39 to take the final exam. So you're getting a $39 freebie. It's supposed to redirect you. And by the time you get there, this might be fixed, but the recent update of LearnDash disabled my code snippet. And they are currently looking into it. They were acting like it's got to be an environment problem because we can't replicate it here. But then somebody else reported the same problem on Facebook. So that made me feel good. It's not just me. It was a problem with the update, but the two things make absolutely no sense because one should not have any impact on the other. That's happening a lot more often these days. And it's not the plugin developer's fault. It's that everything is changing so quickly. Core is changing quickly. The way everybody's doing work is changing quickly. They've got to be on the cutting edge of, everybody's working from home. Everybody needs LearnDash. Everybody's creating a course. They've got to get these updates out as quickly as they can. This is like the live presentation from hell, y'all. What was I doing? It's because I was really rushed. I decided to take a shower so I could spruce up a little bit before my live presentation. And I cut it right down to the minute. I guess I got a little flustered and I apologize. But hopefully I got my point across and hopefully you learned something today. So we will have our live chat at 11 a.m. on Friday. All right, guys, until next time, stay productive, stay strong, and never stop learning. Bye.